Once you see a rich man, the reason why he's a rich person is because of the mindset that he has. And once you see a poor person, the reason why he's a poor person is because of the mindset that he has. I'm going to be using this chessboard to give you an analogy to the reason why most people are rich and probably most people are poor. And it's going to help you to see how you can be able to put yourself in a position that will help you develop the mindset that will transform you from the poor people to the rich people. And now I'm going to be showing you life example or practical example using this particular chessboard. Have you ever wondered why most rich people like to play golf? Have you ever wondered why most rich people like to play chess? I'm going to use chess as an example to show you how and why they do what they do. But before we go into that, if you're seeing me for the first time, my name is Divine, and what I basically do on this channel is document how I trade and as well show you the mindset that allows you to be successful in whatever you're doing. Now on the chessboard, there are basically about 32 pieces on the chessboard. 16 on one side, 16 on the other side. Now on one side contains one king, one queen, two bishop, two knight, two rook, and 8 pawns. Now the king is the most important piece on the chessboard. The queen is the most strongest and the most powerful piece on the chessboard. Now the knight is the most unique piece on the chessboard, and the reason why it's very unique is because it has the ability or the strength to pin both the king and the queen and go scot-free, just like VDM. Now the bishop is the most unstoppable piece on the chessboard. That means it can go to anywhere it has to go to, and no one can stop the bishop from going to where it has to go to. The bishop is the most unstoppable piece on the chessboard. Now the rook is the most, let me say, vulnerable piece on the chessboard, and is kind of unique on its own way because it has the ability to pin the king without the help of other pieces on the chessboard. Now the pawn is basically the weakest piece on the chessboard, and it is the most advantaged piece on the chessboard. What this means is that the pawn is the weakest, but it has an advantage compared to other pieces on the chessboard. And the advantage that it has is that it has the ability to become whatever it chose to become on the chessboard. That means the pawn have an advantage to become the queen. It has the advantage to become the knight. It has an advantage to become the bishop, and as well it has an advantage to become the rook, just depending on how it chooses to become what it becomes, or so long it's willing to work hard and become what he wants to become. Now there are about, let me say, 10% of people who in real life are king and probably queens, and there are basically about 10% who are under the categories of, let me say, the bishop, the rook, and probably the knight. And 80% of the people in the world are basically pawns, like they are just pawns, and those pawns are simply refers to people like me and you. I don't know, me and you, we're all pawns. But remember that the pawn has an advantage to become whatever he chooses to become. The pawn has an advantage to become the queen, which is the strongest piece on the chessboard. have advantage to become any other piece on the chessboard. I'm trying to put you in a position that will make you understand how you can be able to use what I'm explaining to you right now to put yourself in a position that sets you up for greatness. Now the pawn is very, very weak, but has the decision, or has the capacity, or has the potential to become whatever he chooses to become on the chessboard. And out of this 8 pawn on the chessboard, it's only one that can become whatever he chose to become. That means out of these eight pawns on the chessboard, it's likely that it's only one that's likely going to become the strongest, the unique, or the most whatever he chooses to become. And there's a mindset that bet that kind of results, because for you to walk from this point to this point and choose to become whatever you want to become, you need to put in a tremendous amount of hard work, because there's going to be there's plenty of obstacles that are going to stop you. But if you're willing to put in the work completely and work as hard as you can to get to the opponent's side, you can become the strongest piece on the chessboard. You see, but in this game of reality, just like the pawn, you need to work hard to achieve whatever you want to achieve, because every piece on the chessboard was basically once a pawn. That means that every piece that you see on the chessboard was once a pawn. We just did not see when they were a pawn. That means the queen was once a pawn. The knight was once a pawn. The bishop was once a pawn. The rook was also once a pawn. But they were pawns who made decisions to become what they choose to become. And the remaining 8 also have the same potential to become what they choose to become. I'm going to leave you with one question in this video, and I want you to think about it in your free time. Let's for instance say we have a room filled with money inside. In this room, there's plenty stack of money that once you open the room, you're going with money. And there are 3 ways you can have access to that room. Now, the first way is to carefully select in a bunch of keys that are similar and select this right key that will open the door, and you then have access to the money. The second way is to simply knock on the door, and someone who is inside the door is going to open it for you, and then you have access to the money. And probably the third way is to simply break the door and probably go into the room and take the money. Which method are you going to choose? Let me see what you have to say on the comment section. I'm going to respond to you. Now, whichever way you choose to have access to that room is very valid. That means if you choose to carefully select the keys from the bunch of keys and begin to test them one by one to open the door, it's still a valid way to access the room. And if you choose to knock on the door and allow someone who is inside the door to open it for you, it's still a very valid one. And as well, if you choose to simply say I'm going to break the door and have access to the money, it is still very valid, so long you make an effort to have access to that door. Now, the difference between those who are rich and probably those who are poor is that they are making excuses. They are making excuses to the reason why they will not carefully select the keys and get the specific key to open the door. They are making excuses to the reason why they will not knock on the door for someone to open the door for them to have access to the money. They are making excuses to the reason why they will not find probably a hammer and break the door so they have access to the money. The difference between those who are rich and probably those who are poor is excuse. What excuse are you making? You're probably thinking you don't have money to start the business, you don't have money to do this, you don't have money to do that. I always tell people something, that if money is the only way someone can help you, you haven't discovered yourself yet. And making excuses is going to keep you to remain a pawn. Remember, out of the 8 pawns that you see on the chessboard, there's only one that's likely going to become the queen, which is the strongest piece on the chessboard. It is there for you to choose to become that one particular pawn that's going to become the queen. I don't know what excuse you're making right now. I don't know what excuse you think you have, but I want to tell you the truth that that excuse that you have is very valid, but it's only going to make you to remain a pawn. And in the real life, or in the game of life, in the game of real life, every excuse is very valid, but remember, it's going to keep you as a pawn. That'll be all for this video. I will see you in the next video. Peace.